दोस्तों मैं हाँ भुपिंदर and ਤੁਸੀਂ देख रहे हो Jus Punjabi। दोस्तों, as we all know that there is one issue that disturbs most of us coming from our country to this country. We all don't know much about the laws here, but we would love to know about this. But as they say, the strength of a community is to know about the laws, the rights and the duties as well. Well, we are here to talk about all this and to tell you what rights you have regarding immigration, like what troubles you can have and how to face those troubles. Well, you don't have to worry about that. In our studio, we have the members of a very reputed law firm, Bretz Coven, and their members. Let's meet them. We have Carrie Bretz.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for having us, BK.
And Aline. How
Hi.
are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
So as I said, immigration is one of the main issues that actually affect our community, and lots of people, they worry about it. They are, if I would say that they're scared of the laws, will not be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and sadly to say, immigration law is so complicated, it's illogical in the U.S. What you think would make sense is almost the opposite. So it is really important to consult somebody who absolutely knows. Our laws on immigration are almost ridiculous.
Yeah, so talking about immigration laws, recently there was a much hype about the new law that will be there, but it never passed the House, I would say. So what are the reasons? Why is it stopping, and what can we expect in future?
Well, you're correct. The Senate earlier this year passed comprehensive immigration reform, which has, it's not great, but it has a lot of good things. It would give people who are here as of December 2011 the right to work and travel, and work 10 years towards a green card. But if you get the right to work and travel, that resolves a lot. It also does some very intelligent things regarding employment-based immigration by basing it on statistics from the previous year's labor market. So the number of H visas would change each year depending upon the needs of the country. Very intelligent. Lots of enforcement is part of this bill. Not so great. But you're correct, it's stuck in the House, in the Congress, and the chances of it getting through the Congress now that the government is shut down is pretty small, and it's very disappointing. Having said that, there was a group of Democratic congressmen who have been very forceful, even recently during the shutdown, on keeping immigration in the forefront of congressional priorities. So we may see comprehensive immigration reform, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, and talking about that, we have heard that there are some states that are actually doing some initiative. They are trying to get some benefits to those people who are undocumented. So
yeah, that's true too, but it works both ways. There are states that are like Arizona and like Alabama who have done some very serious anti-immigration law, and some states that have been allowing, in fact, people who are undocumented to be licensed as lawyers after they graduate law school. So a lot of interesting trends in the states. Immigration is a hot issue, but we don't have reform yet. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
So Aline, so you deal with those work-related visas, if I am correct?
That's right. People who come to the United States and they may be employed by a company through an H-1B, and then they want to go ahead and transfer that into a green card, we help them with that. Others may come here to finish their education, get a college degree, work for a year, and then they look for an employer to file for them and get them at least a temporary work visa. And then later on, we try and see if we can convert that to a green card again.
So talking about Bretz and Coven, this law firm, how and what type of cases do you deal with?
Great question. I would like to get some easy cases, but we seem to get mostly complicated cases, and we get a lot of referrals from other immigration lawyers. So typically in the office, we do cases where a person may have allegedly committed a fraud or has a criminal history or used somebody else's name. All the cases that are not what you would call not clean. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of cases that we do. We've been doing it for about 20 years, and we enjoy it. We like what we do. We speak 15 languages in the office, including Punjabi and Hindi, and we're proud of that. But yeah, I would like some easy cases, but most of the time the cases are complicated.
So let's take a scenario. Somebody got deported because they committed a fraud, embezzlement of funds or something, and but they have a family here. His wife and kids are here. Kids are citizens. So what options do he have now?
This is a great question, and it's a complicated question. You've asked what happens if someone's been deported and now physically back in India, let's say, and they want to come back to the United States. So there are various ways to do that. In certain circumstances, it would be impossible to come back. If you were deported for a controlled substance offense, you could never come back with a green card. But if you were deported, let's say, for fraud, immigration fraud, or simply overstaying your visa, and it was during the time of the Bush administration where everybody was being deported, you would have some waivers you would need. There are some time bars, but essentially a citizen spouse could petition for you, family members could petition for you, and you could come back. And we do a lot of cases like that. They're frustrating, but they're interesting. And we recently had a case in which also a Punjabi family was, the person was actually physically deported, but we had filed a motion to reopen his case the day before. Immigration ignored it. The judge wound up reopening the case and finding that he shouldn't have been deported to begin with. This was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
We just brought him back a couple of weeks ago. So it is possible to do, but it is a frustrating process.
Definitely, I can definitely understand the families, like what they go through, because the person is there and the family is here. It's a very emotional situation when it comes to that, and I actually don't feel really good when people have put their petition like so those 10, 13 years back, and still they are waiting for their brothers and sisters, if we talk about. And that being said, we have heard that this category will not be existing anytime sooner. So
it's possible. It was. Did you want to take that? It was proposed in the comprehensive immigration reform.
It's one of the things they would like to change and take away, and then use those visas towards the other categories, such as employment-based or the family of lawful permanent residents, the spouses and children or adult children. But they've been talking about eliminating this category for decades, and it hasn't happened. So there are a lot of people out there in positions of power that they don't want to get rid of sibling petitions. So if this bill goes through, it might be changed before the bill gets passed, and it might, survive yet again. It's a wait and see on the part of the immigration lawyers community, I think.
That's correct.
So we'll wait for the reforms to come through, definitely. Till then, let's come back to the H-1B visa. Can a person who's here on H-1B visa own a company or like open his business of his own?
Well, H-1Bs, there's temporary work visas where you basically are the employee of the company who petitioned for you. Technically, you are not able to go out and work for anybody else, or even own your own company. But as an investor within a company, there are no limits on that. But when it comes down to going in and starting your own business, it could get a little tricky. So we need to look at the situation, see what's best for each individual applicant.
And if a person is on that H-1B visa in the same company, the role changes. So maybe he got a promotion or something, and the role he was in is completely changed. So what's the procedure? Will he have to inform it to somebody, or just carry on with the same procedure?
Yeah, because the H-1B application was for a particular position, they would need to go ahead and amend that with immigration. It's not that they wouldn't actually get it amended, but they would have to notify immigration, and they would have to approve the petition.
Definitely. So let's talk about those people who came here a long time back, crossing the borders or some way, came here and they changed their names, have multiple petitions filed, and one of them got approved but another is still somewhere and they forgot to mention it. Let's just put it right way. Like somebody told them, oh, please don't mention it, otherwise it will mess up your case. So they just didn't mention it. Later on, when applying for the citizenship, the inquiries are more comprehensive and these things come up. What should be their course of action?
That's a great question, and it's very accurate. People who have got their green card by failing to mention something negative that was in their immigration history before that, like an asylum case they lost or a marriage case they had, maybe in the same name, maybe in a different name. When they apply for naturalization, the investigation is so intense that these other cases usually come up. And what people fail to realize, everything you do with immigration, you do with your fingerprints.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't matter, you know, if you used one name here and another name there, later on immigration's going to figure it out. So where it was basically a simple fraud, they failed to mention a name, or a very common scenario they're being petitioned for is the unmarried child of a citizen, but they get married. And then when they go to the consulate, they say, no, I'm not married. And they come here with their green card. Later on, immigration figures that out. They will deny the naturalization for sure. And then the possibility is whether or not they could be placed in removal proceedings or deportation proceedings. Oddly enough, the laws in New Jersey are different than they are in New York. It sounds crazy. We have one federal immigration law, but the courts in the two separate states interpret it differently. So you're really safe in New Jersey. If you got your green card by fraud and it's more than 5 years later, immigration can't start a deportation case against you. You may never be able to naturalize, but they can't start the deportation against you. You keep your green card. In New York, they can do that. But there is a very usable waiver that doesn't have a name. The waiver is just, we call it by the section of law in the Immigration Act, it's 237A1H. And it allows somebody who has a parent, a spouse, or a child who's a citizen or a resident, basically ask the judge as a matter of discretion to let me keep my green card. And in a case like that, a judge would look at the person's whole life and balance the good things in the life against the bad. So the bad is the fraud that they did maybe 20 years ago. The good is how long they've been here, what kind of hardship they or the family would suffer, work history, rehabilitation, all of that. And typically a person who's a family man or a family person working, raising their kids, they'll have a good chance at that waiver. They win that, they have their green card as of the date they originally got it under the law, and then can go back and naturalize.
Oh, that's nice. Well, in that case, I would say that it's good that if you're in New Jersey.
A lot of people, when they learn that, quickly move to New Jersey.
New Jersey, definitely. So let's talk something about those people who came here and got political asylum. And as far as I know, if you have a political asylum, you cannot go back to your country at all. But now the situations have changed. Is there any way they can go back saying that, oh, can I just go and visit my country, since the situation's not the same as they were 20 years back?
This is a great question as well. The short answer is, if you got political asylum and you're still an asylee, you can't go back to the country where you got asylum. And a common trick would be to, let's say, fly to a neighboring country like Nepal or Pakistan and then cross the border. It's very risky. You would lose your asylum. The more complicated question is, if you got asylum and then got a green card, what would happen if you go back? And there are various interpretations of that. ICE, the enforcement branch of immigration, takes a position that you give up your asylum even with a green card. There are arguments to make against that, but if you don't want to have a headache, don't return until you become a citizen. When you become a citizen, you can go.
Definitely. So it's easier if you're a citizen and then you can go. And
correct.
So if they have to call their families back in India, so is it complicated, or can they do it easily?
To petition for their families?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they would petition for their families. Like, first of all, if you get asylum, and I think you can explain how derivatives can.
Yeah, once you're granted asylum, you're able to petition for your immediate relatives, your spouses and your children under 21, with a simple application form. But you have to do that within 2 years of being granted asylum. You wait beyond that, you kind of like waive your ability to petition for them under that asylum grant. Then you need to wait till you're a resident and then petition. And as you know, those wait times could be years to decades. So you don't want to do that. As soon as you grant asylum, you want to get that I-730 filed for the entire family to protect them and bring them all in. They would all be granted asylee status and get to come and join you within, several months.
Sure, and let's suppose if somebody's petition was denied and they have to appear in front of an immigration judge, what happens then?
Well, immigration court right now is a pure disaster. Well, first of all, it's closed right now with the government shutdown. The only cases that are going forward are the detained cases. If you're unfortunate enough, or in some circumstances fortunate, to be in front of an immigration judge and eligible for some kind of defense from deportation, you're looking at about a 3 or 4 year run in which you have to go to court in that amount of time. And that's largely because the courts are just very backjammed. There's just too many cases. But if you wind up in front of immigration court and you're deportable because you overstayed your visa, you entered illegally, there may be some remedies. And one of the most common remedies is something called cancellation of removal. And that is available for people who've been here for 10 years, can show that they're a person of good moral character, which really means not having been convicted of something, and can show that if they were deported, a parent, a spouse, or a child would suffer an extreme hardship. Now, that extreme hardship is a very high standard in immigration law, but just making that application as a defense in immigration proceedings gets you a work authorization, and a work authorization that you'll use for 3 or 4 years while the case is pending. And so I have lots of clients who come to me and I say, it's a relatively weak case for cancellation or removal. But they say, yes, Mr. Bretz, will I get the work authorization? I said, yes, let's do it. Because with the work authorization, they get a driver's license. They get the ability to perhaps get a better job and move their life forward. And these cases can be won, but that extreme hardship standard is very high in immigration law.
Well, definitely. On that note, we will take a short break. Please don't go anywhere. Keep watching Jus Punjabi. Welcome back. ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ Jus Punjabi, and in this show we are talking about immigration laws and how you all can help through these laws and how can you handle your cases if you are dealing with one of these points that we are going to discuss in this show with the lawyers of Bretz Coven, the law firm. We have Carrie with us and we have Eileen with us.
Hi, thank you for
Welcome
having us.
back again. So we were talking about different types of visas, and in which there are some visas that we haven't discussed so far. So one of them is investors visas. What are the new trends in investors visas and who can apply for these visas?
Well, it seems like a hot trend, but it's not so new. It would be the EB-5s. EB-5 visas allow people to invest $1 million in the United States and ultimately get a temporary green card that they can convert into a permanent green card. There are exceptions where that $1 million investment can be reduced to $500,000 if it is in an area that has high unemployment. Immigration calls this a targeted employment area. So if your neighborhood is a T area and you open up a business, you need only invest $500,000. That investment would have to turn out 10 full-time jobs. So you have to get 10 full-time employees. That would have to be for more than 3 years, 3 to 5 years, in order for this to eventually turn into a permanent green card.
Okay, so if somebody's here on a visitor's visa, can they actually go for some investment? Or?
They absolutely can. I mean, that's the best time to go ahead and look into investing in a business. Unfortunately, the investor visa processing time could take approximately 1 year. So unless you're allowed to stay in valid legal status and extend your tourist visa, you would have to leave the United States in order to be able to be a recipient of an investor visa. There are some other ways for an investor to take advantage of this. Instead of making a direct investment in a business, they can also use what's called a regional center. Regional centers have been set up where they get the approval of CIS, Citizenship and Immigration Service, and they're allowed to take in investors for different projects. Those projects then have to turn out the number of jobs as they have the number of investors, by 10 obviously. If there's enough jobs out there, all of those investors will ultimately get a green card. So the number of regional centers has increased in the last 2 years, and now we're over 200 regional centers. So there is a lot out there for a potential investor to look into, decide if a regional center is best for them.
Definitely. So if you want to invest in some business and you're here, definitely you can get your consultation from Carrie or Eileen or any other lawyer from Bretz Coven. Definitely. So let's talk about those visas that are not talked much about. Let's. You were telling me about U visa.
I love the U visa.
What is U visa and who can use it?
The U visa is the best. The U visa is available for people who are victims of certain crimes, typically violent crimes. The list is very long, but kidnapping is on the list. That doesn't happen too often. The typical violent crime is assault or robbery or domestic violence as well, even if the person isn't your legal spouse. And there's 2 steps. The first is you have to have reported it to the police, and they have to believe you were credible, and you had to have cooperated with the police. So if you get somebody, you're coming out of the subway, somebody hits you over the head, steals your pocketbook, you go to the hospital, you report it, and the police ask you the next day when you get out of the hospital to come down to the police station to look at pictures, you have to kind of do that and cooperate. And then the second step is an actual application with immigration itself. Now, why is this visa so good? First of all, if you get it and you're an adult, it includes your spouse and your children under 21. If you're under 21, it includes your parents and all your brothers and sisters. There's no other visa in the world with immigration that includes all your brothers and sisters and your parents. What else is so good about it? Well, let's say you were deported from the U.S. and you came back here illegally. You can still get this U visa. Let's say you were deported from the U.S. for fraud and for drug trafficking, and you came back to the U.S. You can still get this visa. This visa trumps everything except if you were alleged to be some kind of terrorist. And it allows you to live and work in the U.S. for up to 4 years, and after 3 years apply for a green card. So somebody who couldn't get a green card because of their immigration fraud, their criminal history, they used many names, they can get this U visa. So that's why I like this U visa. And the public policy behind it is to encourage people who are not documented, who would normally be afraid of the police, to come forward and report crimes. So I wouldn't recommend that anyone make anything up. That would be fraud and a bad idea. But if you are unfortunate in some sense to have become a victim of a crime, you should report it because it'll help you later on. And by the way, there's no statute of limitations. So somebody who's trying to strategize an immigration case today and says, Mr. Bretz, in 1995, I remember I was beat up when I was in high school and I got 14 stitches and I reported it to the police, that would still qualify. So the U visa, I love the U visa, and we do a lot in my office. And the bottom line is that sometimes it takes a case that, we can't figure out what to do for the person, and then we finally ask, were you a victim of a crime? And when they say yes, we're like, oh, this is great. We're going to get you a green card.
Yeah, then actually you read my mind maybe, because I was thinking, so maybe if somebody just makes it up, like tell somebody to hit him and be a victim, can they do that?
I wouldn't recommend anybody do any kind of fraud, and particularly in New York where there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, don't do that.
But if you are a true victim, there is a silver lining, in that you could solve your immigration problems.
Okay.
A very unknown visa, of which we do a lot.
That's great. So if you are a victim of crime, definitely contact Bretz Coven. So talking about another thing, lots of cases in India where people are sending their kids to US. They are not documented. They're just coming here, crossing the borders. Many of them get caught on the borders. What is their option? What can they do now?
There is a visa called Special Immigrant Juvenile Visa. Eileen is a bit more of an expert on that than I am, and maybe she can elaborate on that.
Yes, if a child comes into the United States and they have been abandoned, abused, or neglected by their parents, whether their parents are in the U.S. or abroad, they could be petitioned for in family court by a legal guardian, and if the family court makes a special finding, they are eligible for a green card, and they self-petition. So it's really, it's a marriage between family court and CIS in getting this, I guess, completed and done. But the alien would first need to be put under the court, the family court's docket to be a guardian. I'm sorry, how would you say it? To get a guardian in place for them. Once the guardian is in place, then they could get a special findings, go from there to CIS and file for a green card. Now, if they are before a judge, they can still do this. It doesn't have to be directly with CIS. It takes a little bit of time, but the magic here is if you can show that you've been abandoned, abused, or neglected. And that really is the magic formula to getting an SIJ visa.
And this happens a lot when we see this in our office all the time, when a child either finishes high school or the family may be not so wealthy and the child doesn't finish high school. They send them through the U.S. through some kind of agent. They cross the border in Mexico and they wind up living with a family friend, a prominent member of the community, an uncle. And then that person can go to family court with the help of a good law firm to become the guardian of the child because the parents essentially have abandoned them or couldn't afford them. And in the end, it winds up being a green card. And so many people don't know about that. They keep trying to apply for political asylum, and this is really a much cleaner and faster way, especially if the parents aren't in the U.S.
Yeah, we were talking about those who came here under the influence of somebody else and through agents, or sometimes some families bring some people from India and or some other countries, and they don't treat them very well. And plus they are not documented as well, and they're here illegally. They don't have any place to go. What can they do?
There's so many cases that are coming to light these days where basically you're referring to somebody who's kind of being treated as a slave.
Exactly.
Or as an indentured servant. Took somebody who was maybe somewhat poor from their neighborhood back home, brought them to the U.S. some way, have them in the home, and all they're doing is cooking and cleaning and not really living any kind of life. Basically, those people are victims of human trafficking, and there is a separate visa known as a T visa for victims of human trafficking, something like the U visa. And but the problem is, so few of those people manage to escape, to get out of the house. They get so indoctrinated. There's a story recently, I think about 6 months ago in Westchester, and I think they were Indian as well. Horrible story where they just had this person working and working and working in the house, wouldn't let them leave the house, feeding them very little, leftovers, like a dog almost. But yeah, if they manage to get out and they're able to report it, they can get this T visa. Yeah.
Definitely. So there are lots of options available. If you actually don't know about them yourself, so you should definitely consult a good lawyer and put your case the way it is, and definitely take the consultants. So if you have any such case, and if you want to talk about your case to the lawyers of Bretz Coven, definitely you can contact them on the number on your TV screen, and you can email them as well, and you can visit the websites as well. Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much, Eileen, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks a lot to our viewers as well for watching us. Keep watching Jus Punjabi. We'll be right back. Sat Shri Akal.